Welcome again, this is Scott Jashik. What we're moving on to now is the OnControls wizard. Now with the wizard, it's an 8-step process. This is going to select the handset, select a theme, select the devices that we're going through in our setup. You will notice as you do more and more projects that the wizard might become a little bit less important for your upcoming jobs. With your bigger jobs that you're doing, your multi-rooms, your multi-zone systems, you're going to be doing a lot of creating, a lot of customizing, and that's done outside of the wizard. The wizard is planned for a single room setup. It's a good starting place when you're doing your one room jobs. It's definitely a good place to bring in your activities, your links, and we'll talk more about those as we go along as well. But with the wizard, remember this is your one room setup. This is going to select a couple devices, select your inputs, and do a lot of the work for you. The first thing we see when we enter the builder is our license agreement. And you'll notice with this license agreement, it talks about our licenses and how we attach those as a license per project. So we want to make that clear. It's a license per project. We also have our privacy agreement in here. And if you want to read through this, you're more than welcome to do so. You can also take the mouse and scroll to the lower right hand corner. You can save this as a PDF for your records. You can also print this off and look through it later. You will see this license agreement each time you create your new customer. So when you create your new customer, you will be prompted by this license agreement. We can hit agree and move us on to the first step of the wizard. First step of the wizard is to ask which platform we're programming. Are we programming iOS or are we programming Android? Make your selection and hit next. Now again, with the wizard, we can always come back into the wizard. We can add more activities, we can add more handsets, but you will see as you go along that some of this process you will actually do without using the wizard. Second step, select your device. From our drop down, we see that we have different resolutions. Instead of listing out every single device, we list out the actual resolutions of those handsets. Now this is key. Currently we're not backwards compatible. Therefore, if you build an iPad Retina, it will not sync with an iPad 1, 2, or 3. The Retina will only sync to the Airs and to the iPad 4s. Once you make your selection, do the iPad or iPad mini, we can move on to the third step. Now the lower resolution handsets will move and sync to the higher resolution. So we can go from lower to higher. We cannot go from higher to lower. In our third step, we want to select our theme. And we have 4 themes to choose from. We have brushed, we have white, we have black, and we have the OnControls theme. The OnControls theme has a different background, different buttons, different look and feel. You can create your own themes, you can create your own templates, you can be as customizable as you want, or you can use our generics. It is all up to you. We just give you a starting ground with these 4 themes. In step 4, we want to select our activities. And from here you can see that we have a list for watching a movie, watching TV, Apple TV. So we can make our selections. So we'll do watch movie, Apple TV, and you will also see our music modules, the iTunes, Sonos, Onkyo, and Denon. Now these music modules are only available for iOS at this time, and the iTunes and Sonos modules are only available for an iPad, and that is due to the pure size of the module itself. To the right of our activities, we can see an icon to view what this module and page looks like. So we see a thumbnail. We can enlarge this thumbnail to see what the actual page that we're creating looks like. We can do that for all the different activities here. If you're not quite sure what we would use for a lighting page, we can click on the question mark, and it's going to tell you that you can do IR IP 232 control of your lights. This could be for anything from Lutron Homeworks to Lutron Graphic Eye. Some of the IR controlled lighting solutions that are out there, we can create a lighting page. This is hard button control, so I press a button, the light turns on. We have a module, and what we classify as a module is a two-way interface. So we have a light bulb that turns on when we press a light, or it's going to tell us that the actual light itself is on. We can view what this page would look like as well. Tim, cut that out. And we can actually have thermostats. We can have dimmers, switches. And that's what an automation page itself looks like. Make your selections for the activities, and we'll move on to step 5. Step 5, you want to select the proper devices for your setup. And for the setup that we're going to have you build with our hands-on exercise is a setup with Apple TV. And you'll notice that the Apple TV already has a device assigned. There's no mystery as to how we're going to control the Apple TV. The Apple TV Generation 3 can only be controlled via IR. There is no IP control available of the Apple TV. That is based on the protocol that Apple has available. For our television, we can assign our device by clicking on the Assign box, and this takes you to our browse. Now inside our browse, you can see at the top left we have our type. So we can change our type. So we can look at our TV DVD combo players. We can also look at projection units, and we can look at video processors. For the hands-on, we'll look at our vendor. We have a Samsung TV. For the model, I do not recommend putting any model in, and we'll talk about why. We have different code groups for different remote codes for those devices. Now we don't break these down per model. Instead, we break it down by group. We break it down by all models. We have a lot of generic code sets, so if you search for a specific model, chances are you're not going to find a specific device. Instead, just leave the model section blank and move along to your code type. We can search for specific, we can search for IR, we can search for IP or the serial controls, or we can search for all types to find out what options we have available. Once we filter our results, we see that we have a couple different results for Samsung TVs over IR. You will notice we have no IP control over the Samsung TVs. Again, with the protocol that Samsung has available, there is no way to turn the TV on itself. Wake on LAN is not an option. Power on via network is not an option. We have heard of some people using CEC control, but the CEC control has not been 100% proven accurate, and until that option to turn on a Samsung TV is available, the IP protocol will not be available within our database. We're going to use the Samsung TV all models, put a check mark next to it, and assign. With our receiver, we can assign our device here. We could change our type. We're going to leave it at receiver preamp, and we're going to search for Integra. Again, leave that model section blank, and this time we're going to search for a specific code type for RS-232 control and filter our results. When we filter our results for the Integra, I'm going to use the Zone 1 controls. When you're doing your multi-zone setups and you need those Zone 2 and Zone 3 controls, we'll show you how to browse and import those devices and how to build those extra buttons later. Finally, with our Blu-ray, we'll assign our device. Now with the Blu-ray, again, we could change our type. If you're using a DVD player, if you're using a combo player, or if you're using a game system. With the PS3s, the PS4s, the Xbox 360s, and Xbox Ones, we have commands for those. And for the 360 and the Xbox One, you don't need any extra hardware. With the PS3s, you need some kind of Bluetooth to IR adapter that you can actually use the device controls. Now, we don't have Bluetooth control yet, but you have the ability to buy an adapter and control those adapters. There's the Nico adapter, there is the Logitech adapter, the Tooth Fairy adapters. There's a few different adapters out there that we do have the controls for, and at this time the PS4 has no ability for third-party control. I had read that Sony was building an IP protocol for control of that device, but I do not yet know if that is available. We'll select our type as Blu-ray. We'll type in Panasonic. Once again, leave that model section blank. We'll filter for all types, and we can see that we have a couple different IR codes as well as an IP control protocol. Now with the IP control, we have a note here that says that you cannot power on the device with a power on command. Instead, what you need to do is send play as your power on and create a macro to turn it off as play, delay, power toggle to turn the unit off. We're going to use IR for our setup and assign our device. Once we have all of our devices assigned, we'll move along to step 6. And inside step 6, we want to assign what's handling our audio, what's handling our video. If you're doing everything through an AV receiver, we can select our Integra from the drop-down. If you're using your television as your audio and video switcher, you can make that selection as well. With the matrix switches, with those multi-zone distributed setups, that's where the wizard really doesn't help you a lot there. If you are doing a distributed video setup, leave your video source as NA. We'll show you how to create those macros outside of the wizard. Once you make your selections, move along to step 7. In step 7, we want to assign the proper inputs based on our video selection. Now again, if you are doing anything with the distributed video, just leave these blank. We'll create the macros when we finish the wizard. We'll assign our input. We see from our list the inputs for the RS-232 Integra device. If you're using IP control, you would see a similar list for Integras. If you're doing anything with Denon, you would see the names that populate via Denon receiver. Television just give you HDMI 1, 2, 3, and 4, component, video, auxiliary. You'll see different options based on the device you have selected. The inputs we're using for the hands-on are going to be BD, DVD for movie, and game for the Apple TV. Inside step 8, this is our summary. We can see everything that we have just created. We see the handset, we see the platform, we see our activities, we even see the inputs that we assigned. We see our control devices, and we also see at the top right corner an icon for print. You can print this off, show it to your client, and you can find out, has anything changed with the system? Did they change cable providers? Did they change satellite providers? Did anything change that you need to add or do you need to remove? Print this out for your records, and once you've confirmed everything within your summary page, we'll click Finish, and the wizard starts to go to work for us. The wizard's going to create our panels and pages. The wizard's going to create our links between those pages. It's also going to create macros based on those video inputs that we have assigned. A lot of things the wizard does for us. Now, a couple things it doesn't do. You notice that we did nothing with automation. All your automation pages have to be created outside the wizard, and your distributed video, that has to be created outside the wizard as well. Again, the wizard is a good place to start for your single room setups, and if you're trying to get just a couple activities assigned for your big whole house systems, might not be a bad place to start as well. But again, we will do a lot of work outside the wizard, and that's what's coming next. For your hands-on portion, what we'd like you to do is create a handset. It could be any handset that you own, iOS or Android, and use the devices that I have selected from the wizard, so a Samsung television, Panasonic Blu-ray, Apple TV, and an Integra RS-232 controlled receiver. Once you finish the wizard, you can move on to the next video module.